with us once again in Tucson, Arizona. Kelly, what more are we learning about that latest news about the DNA found on a glove a couple of miles from Nancy's house?
Well, the snapshot we are getting from investigators is that there's a lot of evidence that they've been dealing with, and a glove and other gloves have been talked about a lot publicly, and they have taken testing of those. They have established DNA profile, and then they've compared it against that database that you referred to, which includes persons all across the country who've been arrested or charged or convicted with a crime. There are differing laws state by state about when someone who's taken into custody must provide their DNA. But it is a vast database, and certainly if there were a criminal history, that would be a good way to identify a potential depositor of that DNA. Then, is it in some way linked to the Guthrie case? That's another big question. So work is being done. There are hundreds of investigators who are on this case working on a stream of different types of approaches. We know, for example, that they have been canvassing gun stores in the area. Why? Because the suspect seen on that doorbell video had a weapon, had a holster that had some interesting identifying markers that authorities are trying to get a better read on. Where was it purchased? What could they learn?
Back with us tonight from Tucson, Arizona, Kelly, what are investigators quietly uncovering after that shocking DNA discovery tied to a glove found just miles from Nancy Guthrie's home? Well, behind the scenes, authorities are drowning in evidence. Multiple gloves have now become central to the investigation, and forensic teams extracted a complete DNA profile before running it through one of the country's largest criminal databases, containing records from suspects, convicts, and individuals arrested nationwide. Every state handles DNA collection differently, but investigators know one thing for sure: if this person has ever crossed the system before, they may already have a name.
I call this person the offender. The offender's behavior as he's walking around the porch prior to going inside the residence, he doesn't seem nervous. He's walking at a comfortable pace. He doesn't appear agitated. He appears to be actually relaxed. So I think that's really important. When you put it into this perspective, he is about ready to go into a home where he doesn't belong and kidnap the person inside the home. And yet this is how relaxed that he is. So I think that tells us something about not only his personality, but it certainly could also suggest that this person is comfortable in that neighborhood, and maybe even comfortable having been in the home before, because it helps to have met.
But the terrifying question remains, is this DNA directly connected to the Guthrie disappearance? Right now, hundreds of investigators are attacking this case from every angle. Agents have reportedly been flooding local gun shops, obsessing over a holster seen in the chilling doorbell footage. Not the weapon, the holster. Why? Because the markings on it may reveal where it was bought and who carried it. 17 days. 17 agonizing days since Nancy Guthrie vanished from her peaceful Tucson neighborhood. And tonight, everything exploded. The FBI didn't hold a quiet briefing. They didn't offer another vague statement. They moved. Federal agents stormed homes in the dead of night, hauled a Range Rover out of a diner parking lot, and entered gun stores carrying a list of nearly 40 names. Ask yourself this: why would tactical teams descend on a neighborhood after midnight unless they were already closing in on someone? Because suddenly, the investigation changed. A glove discovered 2 miles away. DNA with no match in CODIS. An Ozark Trail backpack traced back to a single retail chain. Then came the behavioral analysis. Experts say the suspect's movements were deeply unsettling. He paced around the porch slowly, calmly, almost comfortably. No panic. No hesitation. Moments before entering a stranger's home to abduct someone, he appeared completely relaxed. Investigators now believe that detail changes everything. It suggests this man may have known the area intimately, maybe even the house itself. Then another disturbing twist surfaced. The tactical holster seen in the footage didn't even match the firearm being carried.
To get the suspect, because I'm not it. They better do their job and find the suspect that did it so they can clear my name, and I'm done. Look at what I'm putting my family through.
You're on national news now.
Not just them. Even my parents in Tucson.
Suddenly, this stopped feeling like a random disappearance fading into cold case territory. This feels deliberate. Planned. Personal. Officials still refuse to say the word arrest, but when federal judges approve sealed warrants, when forensic labs stay active through the weekend, and when tactical units mobilize before sunrise, that's not procedure anymore. That's pressure tightening around someone's throat. And if the person responsible is watching tonight, they are not calm anymore. They are watching investigators get closer with every passing hour. But here's the detail that changes the entire case. During the first 2 weeks after Nancy Guthrie vanished in Tucson, Arizona, the FBI looked completely lost. No suspect. No emotional press conferences. No dramatic reveal. Just silence. But behind that silence was a digital war happening in secret. Investigators uncovered mountains of hidden data. Doorbell footage that mysteriously vanished at exactly 1:47 a.m. A motion alert triggered at 2:12 a.m. Then nothing. No visible video at all, until the FBI made a move nobody saw coming. Instead of focusing on the house, they went after the servers. Working alongside digital forensic experts and back-end engineers, agents recovered broken fragments of corrupted cloud footage everyone thought had been erased forever. But it wasn't gone. Buried deep inside the system was something horrifying, grainy black and white footage showing a masked man standing motionless on Nancy Guthrie's porch, calm as if he'd been there before. He wasn't sprinting. He wasn't trembling. He wasn't second-guessing a single move. He walked across that property like it belonged to him. Think about how disturbing that really is. No nerves. No panic. I hope they catch whoever actually did this because it wasn't me. They need to find the real suspect so my name can finally be cleared. Look what this has done to my family. Now I'm all over the news. Even my parents back in Tucson are suffering through this. But investigators kept circling back to one terrifying detail: the man in that footage looked completely at ease. Not frantic. Not improvising under pressure. Comfortable enough to calmly reach toward the camera, cover the lens with a gloved hand, then wedge a plant in front of it to block the view entirely. That isn't luck. That's control. And control like that usually comes from two things: experience or familiarity. Almost immediately, the FBI changed their wording. No more unknown individual. No more vague person of interest. They officially labeled him a suspect. Male. Estimated between 5 feet 9 inches and 5 feet 10 inches. Average build. Dark jacket. Gloves. Carrying an Ozark Trail backpack sold exclusively through Walmart. But the strangest clue sat right on his hip. A tactical holster designed for large frame revolvers, yet frame analysis indicated the weapon inside was likely semi-automatic. Translation. Either this guy had no idea what he was doing, or the mismatch was intentional. A planted distraction. A signal. Because here's the question almost nobody is asking: why would someone smart enough to wear gloves, conceal his identity, and carry a weapon still allow himself to appear on camera? Unless he believed the footage wouldn't matter. Unless he believed he wouldn't be recognized as a stranger. Then the investigation took another hard turn. Nearly 2 miles from Nancy Guthrie's house, buried beside an isolated stretch of roadside brush most drivers would never notice, search crews discovered a black glove. Not just similar, nearly identical. Same texture. Same material. Same visible pattern captured in the surveillance footage. Investigators collected 16 gloves across the search radius. 15 were garbage. This one wasn't. Inside the glove, forensic teams recovered fresh DNA belonging to an unidentified male. The sample was rushed into CODIS, a national database holding over 19 million offender profiles. The result? Nothing. No match. Let that settle in for a second. Whoever dropped that glove had never been arrested for a qualifying felony. No DNA submission. No criminal fingerprint history sitting inside the system. To the public, that sounded like a dead end. To veteran investigators, it changed the entire psychological profile. This didn't look like a repeat offender bouncing through the justice system. This looked like someone who had blended quietly into everyday life for years, until now. And the second CODIS came back empty, the FBI pivoted fast. Genetic genealogy protocols were activated. Suddenly, this investigation stopped being about whether the suspect existed in a database and became about whether a cousin did, or an aunt, or a brother-in-law who casually uploaded DNA to an ancestry site years ago. Family trees don't stay hidden forever. They spread outward, then fold inward toward one person. Around the same time, the Pima County Sheriff's Office revealed something subtle but deeply alarming. Investigators were no longer gathering names. They were crossing them off. More than 40 to 50,000 tips had flooded in since Nancy Guthrie disappeared, but agents were now walking into gun stores carrying printed sheets containing just 40 individuals. 40. That's not confusion. That's narrowing pressure. And pressure only moves in one direction, toward a single identity, a single house, a single knock on the door that won't come politely. If someone in Tucson still thinks they are invisible tonight, they are wrong. Because this case has stopped expanding and started closing in personally. And this is where everything becomes dangerous. While forensic analysts quietly built genetic family trees behind closed office doors, agents on the ground in Tucson were already moving aggressively. Investigators subpoenaed Walmart purchase records, not from one location, but across the region. Every Ozark Trail backpack sold. Every tactical holster purchase. Timestamps. Payment methods. Register numbers. Surveillance angles. Exit doors. Walmart processes millions of transactions, but this wasn't random data collection anymore. Investigators filtered it by gender, height range, location proximity, and purchase windows tied directly to Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. The list of buyers began shrinking fast. Then came the detail almost everyone overlooked. The exact holster model captured in the footage had only been stocked in 5 Walmart locations within 60 miles of Tucson. 5 stores. 5 parking lots. 5 camera systems. Which means if the suspect purchased that holster himself, there's likely surveillance footage somewhere showing his face. At the same time, specialized CAS teams were executing something even more invasive, cell tower mapping from the night Nancy Guthrie vanished. Every active phone between midnight and 4 a.m. was analyzed. Residents were filtered out. Verified traffic patterns were removed. Emergency responders cleared. What remained were devices that didn't belong there. Phones lingering too long. Phones moving in ways investigators considered abnormal. You don't need to commit a crime on your phone for it to betray you. You only need to carry it. And in 2026, almost everybody does. Then came the first major public flashpoint, a midnight tactical operation near a Culver's restaurant. Unmarked vehicles flooded the area. A Range Rover was seized under sealed warrant authority. 3 people were detained, questioned, then released without charges. Instantly, the internet erupted. Wrong address. Failed raid. Desperation. But what most people didn't understand was this: every person eliminated from the list tightens the noose around whoever remains. Every cleared suspect sharpens the focus. And law enforcement quietly confirmed something terrifying: the number of active investigative targets was no longer in the thousands, not even hundreds. It had dropped to mere dozens. Witnesses watched agents walk into firearm dealerships carrying printed sheets displaying 40 faces and 40 names. Employees were asked a simple question: had any of these individuals recently purchased weapons or accessories? That isn't broad investigation work anymore. That's precision targeting. And here's where it becomes explosive. When retail purchase history, cell tower data, and genetic genealogy begin overlapping, when the same name appears in 2 systems, or 3, that's when probable cause transforms into warrants, and warrants become raids. Somewhere inside that shrinking group of 40 is a man convinced the glove was an insignificant mistake. A man who thinks having no criminal history keeps him safe. A man who may not understand that the absence of a database match doesn't shield you, it isolates you. And in investigations like this, isolation isn't protection. It's exposure. Because the funnel is no longer wide. It's collapsing inward rapidly. And now this story stops being about clues and starts becoming about consequences. Late last night, multiple sources inside the FBI confirmed something chilling enough to shake every resident in Tucson, Arizona. A sealed warrant hasn't just been discussed, it's already been prepared. Not requested. Prepared. Which means prosecutors have likely seen enough evidence to move forward. Which means the overlap investigators feared finally happened. One name surfaced repeatedly across systems: retail data, vehicle tracking, cell tower movement, and when analysts quietly ran familial DNA comparisons through CODIS extensions, they reportedly discovered a partial genetic connection. Not a direct match, but enough to make investigators in those rooms suddenly pay attention. Here's what makes it even more unsettling. The individual tied to that profile has no violent criminal history. No public arrest record. No obvious warning signs. Which means this could either become the most shocking suspect revelation in recent Tucson history, or proof that someone carefully hid who they really were for years. Neighbors described him the same way every true crime documentary always begins: quiet, reserved, kept to himself. And then came the twist nobody expected. Financial analysts working alongside the Pima County Sheriff reportedly uncovered suspicious cash withdrawals in the weeks leading up to Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. Not huge amounts. Nothing flashy enough to trigger alarms. Just carefully structured withdrawals, small enough to avoid automated detection, but large enough to matter. And investigators believe those funds were used to purchase outdoor gear, prepaid phones, and fuel along isolated rural routes outside normal city surveillance.